All right, you guys. Hello, hello. Welcome to our podcast here at Hungry for More. I am Robin. This is Jennifer. And we're not saying we're smarter than Albert Einstein, but we're going to one-up him a little bit on one of his quotes. He is at least credited for saying the definition of insanity is doing the same things over and over again and expecting different results. And here's where we're gonna one up it a little bit, because you may look at that quote and say, I did do things differently and I did get results. Or maybe you felt like you did do different things differently and you didn't get results, right? So if we need to take a step back before the doing part. There's something that precedes the doing that needs to happen in order for you to do things differently, get different results, and keep them that way. Because otherwise, once you burn out on the doing, you will come back to the same way of being because of how you're thinking. So there's the answer right there. The definition of insanity is thinking the same way about something and then expecting different results. So let's get into this. Well, sorry, looking at my notes. First of all, there are many things that we need to unlearn when it comes to food. Anything outside of eating for hunger and your fullness levels is something we were taught. It's a learned behavior because we were born with that already programmed and calibrated perfectly. Okay. But then we started to introduce different ideas and thoughts about the use of food. And you can help me out with this, Jennifer. I know one right away when we're little is, to be rewarded with food for going potty. Totally did that with my kids.
Or comforted.
Right.
Oh, you fell down, you got hurt. Here's a boo-boo. How about I used to take my kids to get their hair. My kids were born with full heads of hair. So they were getting haircuts from a very young age. And I would give them a lollipop to suck on to entertain them. Not that it's not like necessary. It's not a bad thing, but you can see how we learn to use food.
Yes.
Outside of hunger, right?
Right.
Fullness.
And that's the point here is we're showing and illustrating how as a society and as cultures and families, we have introduced other reasons and ideas and beliefs about food and reasons to eat outside of the body's needs and cues that it's sending to us. And that's okay. Some we still choose to. You might say, you know what, every time I go to the movies, I'm going to have popcorn. And that's just a decision you've made. Okay. But we have to understand if we want different results and we want to do things differently, that we first have to back up and address the source of what's causing this and how we're thinking about it, the beliefs. So how do we unlearn certain behaviors? How do we change? Well, it's identifying, and it's through the conscious eating practice that we teach you guys to identify in the moment when you're doing the practice. Remember what it is, that we pause before we react. And we check in and say, hey, body, is this you telling me I need something to eat? And when we recognize and the body answers no, that's when we can know right there, this is a thought going on inside that's driving me to eat outside of hunger. So today we wanted to share two big sentences, big beliefs that I bet has touched every single one of us, that if you could change your mind about these things and unlearn them, you will change your results for good.
Yeah. And I want to add, I think that these affect even those who feel like they're very conscious eaters. These still come up. Like, I don't think there's anybody that's completely immune to them. So let me jump in and we'll just start with the first one. And this is a big one. I've seen it a lot. I used to be this way with my children. I grew up in a home that was this way, but it's don't waste food. Don't waste food. So that can be anything. It could be When my kids were little, growing up, I did family style at the dinner table, right? My mom would put the food on and we would dish ourselves up. So we had a little bit more control over that. But I think about when my 6 children, I had 6 children in 9 years. And so I didn't do family style. Can you imagine family style at the table when they were all little itty bitties? What I would do is I would dish up their plate. And I'm confessing, this is literally like a confession because I didn't know conscious eating. I didn't know this, right? I would dish up their plates and I swear it was like I gave the 2-year-old the same as the 10-year-old. And I put their plates on the table and the 10-year-old would be done and he'd be like, hey, I want more. Okay, we'll get you more. And my 2-year-old, maybe they're not eating their food. I'm like, no, we got to finish. We got to finish that meal plate. Not taking into account that maybe one is hungrier than the other. Maybe like they don't all have the same size. And it was just teaching this, don't waste, don't waste. Nope, we have your plate there. Don't wait. I have seen people have their children not leave the dinner table until their food is done.
Oh, totally. Yeah, that's very common. I for sure had that rule in my house at times. And so why is this a belief that we need to unlearn now? Well, it's because it's outdated. It's no longer relevant to the environment that we live in. I remember too, like as I was picking up dinner dishes, if my kids had a nugget left on there or whatever they had left on there, I'd eat it because I didn't want to waste it. And even like if I was cleaning my casserole dish and there was just one corner left, I couldn't stand to just scoop that into the sink. I would eat it.
Right. And when you say times are different now, let's back up and say there was a time where people would go out and they would hunt for their food and you didn't waste one part of that animal because you didn't know when you were getting food again. So even if you ate more than you needed, your body stored it because it needed to, because who knew when food was coming? We don't live in that world. We know that there's always going to be, very few people, most people know that they're going to get their next meal. And so when we're eating it and like got to eat it all, it's different from back then, right?
Well, even closer generationally, most of us aren't too far generationally from the Great Depression, where things were way more scarce and every penny counted. And there was that type of mentality. Well, if we carry that mentality that maybe served humanity at one point to here where we have, thankfully, to those listening, you're probably in an environment where you have an abundance and availability to food. Now that very same belief is creating problems. It's not serving you and keeping you aware and making sure it's taking care of you. It's causing health problems. It's causing excess burden on your body to take it all in. And so this is the belief, so the old kind of, if we go to Albert Einstein's doing something different, getting different results, this is where we're like, okay, I'm going to portion control. I'm going to count the calories. And this is how we try to do it. But if we haven't taken the belief away and unlearned that belief, once we stop doing the calorie counting, or once we get off track on whatever we're doing, we will go back to that place. And when we're not watching as much and tracking as much, we will go back and act from that place. And that's why it just keeps us stuck. So I want to tell you a story about, I was at a networking meeting, and of course at these meetings, you share who you are and what you do. And so a gentleman who was visiting our chapter came up to me after, and he's like, oh, you're a nutrition mindset person. He's like, you know what? I'm pretty good on most things, but I cannot stand to waste food. And I know that's my problem. That's what keeps the extra weight on me. He's like, but it was like a moral thing to him, And so I shared with him this whole idea that is the very belief that is causing him problems. And I gave him a new, we had a paradigm shift with it. And I said, whether the food is taken on by you, the excess food is taken on by you or returned to Mother Earth through the garbage, the end result is the same. It will be waste. And Mother Earth is much more equipped to handle and process the excess food than your body. And he said, like this huge light bulb went off. He goes, oh my goodness, you literally in those few sentences undid, like you did 10 years worth of struggle for me, just like that. He goes, I will never be the same. I will never act the same again. It can be that simple where you just recognize it for what it is and you change your mind. And then the way you unlearn it truly in a true sense in the neural pathways is you stop reacting to that belief. You apply the practice we teach, recognize it's not the body asking and going, oh yeah, this is me. This is that belief in me still that doesn't want to waste food, but I don't believe that anymore. So now I'm not going to act upon it. And when we do that over and over and over in practice, that belief goes quiet and goes away, right? It doesn't.
Right. And we're not talking, I want to clarify one thing. We're talking about eating all the food in that sitting because you don't want it to be wasted. There are many times where I package up leftovers and I save them for the next time I'm hungry, or I leave a restaurant and I bring home my leftover steak and then the next morning use it for steak and eggs. So it's not throw your food away. I mean, you could, I mean, it may be that, but what I'm saying is you don't need to eat it right then and there because it's going to go bad and nobody's going to eat it later.
Yeah, thank you. That's important. What we're not saying is who cares, go waste food and throw it away everywhere. But what's so funny about this belief, Jen, that you just highlighted, what's funny, that's how powerful the belief is that it doesn't have you cluing into, okay, I can stop right now and I can save this for next time I'm hungry.
Still enjoy it.
Right. That trumps that because we're in that belief of like, I can't waste it. That's what drives the behavior to overfill. And we don't even see that there's another way to handle this extra food. Right. So for me, yeah, the throwing away, usually, I know for me, it was really hard, especially when I'm paying like $20 for a salad or something. And I get full and I can't finish it. And salads, that's like the one food I really struggle with leftovers, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I would have the hardest time, right? And so I would just stuff it down, justifying like, well, it's healthy, it's a salad, but still I was over full. And my body's feedback with my weight still was like, yeah, it's salad, but you overate. And so I'm carrying this, right? So yes, when you unlearn this belief by stopping the reaction to it and being aware, you will behave differently. And because the belief itself changed, this won't be a temporary thing. You will stop. And this is one of the things our clients catch onto the quickest, right? I think the feedback when people start working with us, one of the first feedbacks that they notice, they're like, I don't overstuff myself anymore. They don't feel
over full anymore. And there's a sense of satisfaction that comes with going, I'm totally in control and I feel good. I'm done. And it's okay that there's a couple bites left on my plate. We're okay with that.
Right. And again, most of the time it can be saved, but that belief won't let you see it. It'll have you finishing it up in that moment.
No matter what. Okay. So everybody's going to work on that belief and not wasting food, but there's another one that's very common. And gosh, we've talked about it a lot, but it's so important. And if you're on a plan and you fall off of your plan, or your scale isn't moving, you're sticking to your plan and that scale isn't moving. It's like, oh, well, I already fell off of my plan. I might as well eat everything I want, and not be conscious and not worry about it because I'm off. And then once I start again, I'll be really, really good and I'll stay on my plan. Or the scale not moving is a big one. When I was first on my weight loss journey and I was really incorporating conscious eating, I remember I did weigh myself regularly. And it's funny because if I have clients who are struggling with the scale, I'll be like, stay off of it. Who cares what the scale says? But there would be times where I would go 3 or 4 weeks with not even 1 ounce lost.
Yeah.
But I knew that I felt so good. And eventually over time, I was down over 50 pounds.
Mhm.
And it
Right.
didn't matter. I just wasn't watching that scale. But I remember at first being like, what? I have
Yeah.
been very conscious. I've been eating very good. And no movement.
Right. I
So
deserve results, right? I've been
yeah.
good.
Yeah.
So I think if we were to summarize, if we were to give you a sentence and summarize what you were just talking about, it's kind of that sentence that's like, well, I might as well, right? Since I messed up, I might as well eat whatever I want and just start over tomorrow. Since the scale's not rewarding me for how good I was yesterday, I might as well,
Oh
because
yeah. And when I was in that mode, I'd be like, what else do I want to eat? Since I'm already off, I'm going to start. What else is in my house that I can eat? I mean, it's just like,
it just
I remember that multiple times.
totally snowballs. Exactly. So that is one we need to unlearn. If we just focus on the doing, that's us kind of clenching down and saying, well, I just got to get more serious about my plan and I've got to make sure I don't fall off my plan. If truly it's just about doing things differently, that's where your focus is going to be. But again, we got to back up. Something precedes the doing, and it's how you're thinking. We've got to unlearn this belief and change it. That when I mess up, whether I do go off plan or whether the scale isn't giving me the feedback I want, I will continue. I will eat again when I'm hungry. That's
Right.
our favorite
Well,
answer to that.
and the funny thing is that if you're being a conscious eater, like I have a specific way I like to eat, but if I'm being a conscious eater and I choose to eat something that maybe doesn't always align with that, I don't even look at it as falling off the plan. And so there's no need to like keep going. It's like, no, I just made the choice to eat this. I'm good.
Right. That's all learned stuff, right? So the whole plan and being on and off and wagon, like that's all just stuff we made up. And it's keeping us stuck. So when you find that thought coming up because you stepped away from however it is, whatever you expect of yourself, of how you're eating, or the scale doesn't give the feedback, and that thought comes up like, oh, well, I might as well. That's where you want to catch yourself and say, no, that belief is what's keeping me stuck.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on? I'll eat again when I'm hungry and I'll continue on. And that keeps you in a calm space and not panicked. And it's going to have you doing things differently. You're going to stop going through the pantry as a result of that belief, right? And starting over tomorrow. You're just going to recoup and recover and smoothly move to the next time your body cues you that you're hungry. And that is how we unlearn that. We stop feeding that belief that when things don't go your way or you don't walk the perfect line, that all is lost. It doesn't matter anyway. You're not going to get what you want. You already screwed up. So you might as well.
Right. Right.
Is huge. That
These
is
two things. Can you imagine if these two things were not in the way with our weight management or with any of that? Like if having to eat, having the scarcity, having to feel like you have to eat all the leftovers, or feeling like, well, I already fell off, so I might as well do this, or I'll wait and start on Monday. Can you even imagine what that would be like for people if that was a non-issue?
Yeah, if that was no longer how you think. At first, it'll be how you think, but you stop reacting to it. And then eventually, like for me, that's not even the don't waste food is not even something I even have to battle with because the thought has lost its power. The way that thoughts have power with you is from the constant reinforcing of them. It's the acting on them that gives them fuel that says to your brain, yes, this is an important thought because we complete the action of it. But when we remove the action from the thought, it weakens and weakens. And in your sleep, it gets trimmed away so that those resources can be used in other beliefs you're formulating and that you're putting your attention to, right? So yes, imagine, like truly picture, how would I just function every day? How much more ease would I have around food and emotionally and all of that if don't waste food, and the, I messed up, so screw it thoughts didn't have space in my mind. If I didn't even react to them, and if they didn't even occupy my attention, what would that look like?
It would be freedom is what it would be. You wouldn't even be a thought. We wouldn't have as big of a purpose in what we were doing, because these are the two biggest roadblocks that we come up against with clients.
Yes. And your body would be free to shed the excess weight, because we wouldn't be coming back around once the doing wore out and the results wore out. You wouldn't be back to these same beliefs. So these are simple things. You may be listening to our podcast and be like, they're not, we don't have earth-shattering strategies and magic tricks, but even though they're a little exciting to the brain when we first hear about them, they never last. What we're talking about is lasting change and being in relationship with food in a peaceful way that you've never experienced before. So take these things seriously. Look at these two beliefs, be committed to noticing them and stopping the pattern right there and saying, yeah, I don't think I believe that anymore. Yeah. Or I don't want to believe anymore. And until I do, I'm just going to stop acting on this old pattern. And you will see that you will get different results, and they will last, because the thinking, the source of all of it, changed to something new. And you'll be reacting to your new thought of like, I'm feeling full, better bag this up and save it for later. That will be your new doing.
And then one day you will realize that it totally is just unconscious doing it. You're conscious and it just becomes regular, right? Yeah, you don't even have to think about it. It's not this thing that even matters. Think of something in your life that you're like, yeah, I just don't eat that. Like, it doesn't even cross my brain, or I don't know. There's so many examples. It will become that easy to you.
Yeah.
It will be awkward at first, and it will be uncomfortable, but it will be okay.
Yeah, it will. This is a way to freedom. So we're always happy to share. Thanks for being here with us today. Reach out if you have any questions. We always love to hear when these things you're applying make a difference in your life. We're all in this together, and we love you guys. Take care.
Yep.